we're here again. Marriage Moments with Billy and Elena Island.
Yep.
Because every moment matters.
Dang, I missed it. Dang, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
No, I timed it so you wouldn't get it.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it was on purpose.
Sabotage.
So, well, the thing is every moment matters in marriage. And what are your thoughts like as we've been diving into these topics and having questionnaires and discussions? What is one of the things that you are really excited about, or what are you really thinking about when it comes to this podcast and this shooting?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's still kind of new for me because I'm not really the one that speaks all the time. And so...
Really?
I mean, not publicly or, in front of people or whatever. And so in recent years, or like last year, you had me on the calendar this year to speak. And well, not you had me, but the team has put me on the calendar to speak a little more. And so I feel like God is up to something. I'm not sure what, but I've been speaking a lot more than I normally do. So I'm pretty excited about it, actually.
Yeah, when she's talking about the calendar, she's talking about speaking at our church, the Well Community Church. And we got a hot topic today. Let me just go ahead and say it. We're going to talk about sex today.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Remember that TLC song, Let's Talk About Sex?
Was
Baby?
that whose song?
I don't know if it was TLC or not.
No,
and the reason why I don't know why is because,
that?
I don't really listen to worldly music.
Oh, come on. Don't start trying to act like you was all holy.
Janice and Willie didn't play that.
Who is that?
My parents. They didn't play that. You ain't going to be playing no worldly music up in this house.
Yeah, that's why I knew it wasn't them. But we're going to talk about sex up in here.
All right.
All right, so let's just go ahead and dive right into it.
Okay.
How about sex? Is it overrated or nah?
I would have to say definitely not overrated.
Okay. I was about to say I am your husband. Come on now, you can't put me out there like that.
Be
now.
Be nice.
You know what I'm saying? That would have been
right. That would have been awkward.
No.
Definitely not overrated, but I do think that it's we live in a society where we have so much information at the tip of our hands, in a cell phone, that it's not as protected as it should be. And because it's not as protected as it should be, it does seem to be overrated.
Okay, so it's not protected, meaning the guidelines, the boundaries, the sanctity of it. What do you mean
all
by
of that? All of that. Right. I think that, people really, just as society as a whole, and even within the church, it's just not, it's that spectrum thing. It's either way over here where it's not talked about at all, because we don't want to awaken stuff in people and all that, or that's all that's talked about and is just over sexualized,
And I want to talk about that in a moment about, us not want to talk about it, especially like in the church as Christians.
Yeah.
But can you get consumed with sex? Like even like in the confounds or the boundaries of marriage, we know that you can kind of like get consumed possibly, when you're single or, you're dating around with other, ladies or males, but sometimes when we think like, okay, I'm getting married, now I'm married, then it seems like, shoot, all bets off, I got, the green light from God, but can you get consumed with sex?
I think so. I think so. I think that it's just like anything that we like as human beings. I don't think sex in and of itself is evil. I don't think it's just like money. It's amoral.
Amoral.
And so what ends up happening is
amoral, meaning it can be used for good or bad.
Yeah. And so to an extreme, I think anything is bad for you, including sex. But with that trend of thought, I just want to say that if there is any type of sexual dysfunction, or as church folks call it, a lustful spirit or whatever, marriage doesn't cure that.
Okay, so you can have lust even for your spouse in marriage, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that lust is not a thing to be destroyed, but something to be managed, attention to be managed. What do you think about that?
Well, the saints of old would be like, you need to be delivered,
Well, no, what I mean is,
but personally, I believe, I can understand how, like, our Christian walk is a journey, you know, so some things are not going to be taken care of right then and there at salvation. So you will be working that thing out. And I think that lust, or because lust goes beyond sex, you know.
Exactly.
But so I think that's progressive in your Christian walk. It gets worked out as much as you want to surrender that to God.
Yeah, because I mean, really, lust is a desire out of control, and God gave us those desire, like for sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
But being consumed by sex, it's possible. You're telling me?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, like, what do you think when you talk about like soul ties, or you know, does that play a role in that any kind of way? Like being tied to someone's soul because you've intertwined emotionally, physically through sex, mentally through, you know, just encountering someone in an intimate way. Like, what do you think about that when you hear the word soul ties?
I definitely think soul ties exist. And I also believe that the Lord can heal, because when you talk about a soul tie, what does your soul consist of? Your mind, your will, your emotions.
Right.
So as we as human beings surrender to Christ, of course, because I don't believe any of this is able to be healthy in life without a relationship with Christ, you know, fully healthy.
I like how she always turn it back, you know what I'm saying? We gonna be praying and fasting and worshiping and
Well,
listening
I
up
mean, I'm a Christian and I do stand firmly on my belief. Not that you don't, but
I hope I do.
Right? Consider that we like pastoring the whole church. But I will say, when it comes to soul ties, as a person begins to experience healing in those areas that our soul consists of, mind, will, and emotions, that as you experience healing, those ties begin to be less and less. It's kind of like that analogy that you give when you ring a bell and it's like really, really loud. But as time goes on, you get further and further away from that ding, ding, ding. You know, you get further and further away from that sound. You know what I'm talking about? Because you're kind of looking at me like I'm
trying to wrap my mind around it. But I mean, the reality is this is, you know, we probably want to define what a soul tie is, you know, the mind, will, and emotion. But like when someone's connecting with someone sexually, often your mind is like really like wrapped up in that person.
Yeah.
Your emotions, your affections, your heart, you know, is totally like, you know, wrapped up into that person. And that's why you can be emotionally, you know, pulled in certain directions. That's why mentally you can't stop thinking about that person. That's why your will, what you want to do, you don't want to be with that person tonight. You're even like almost like crying. But then if they text you late at night, you still jump in your car and drive all the way over there. This is a soul tie. Like you're tied to that person in a manner that, you know, is typically unhealthy, because God didn't never design for us to live that way, you know, outside of marriage. Because obviously I'm married to Elena, so yeah, she got that pull, you know, mentally, you know, she's on my mind, emotionally, you know, we're connected. But you know, if you have a soul tie with someone because of sexual encounters prior to marriage, it really can begin to affect you, your mind, will, and emotion. And then you have to come, like you were saying, to the Lord, and you have to be detoxed of, you know, of that, like that connection that you have with that person. And so, you know, as far as like what you're saying, I've grasped you know, the idea. I'm just joking with you. As far as like understanding, you know, the more you get away from the distance, you know, and you get away from, you start seeing how toxic you can be. You know, I want to dive a little deeper. This is prompt two. Have you ever been connected to a soul tie? Have you been?
Wow. Okay.
No, I'm just saying we're out there. This marriage moment.
I'm going to ask the question next time.
No. Have you ever been in a soul tie, like you know, where you feel like, dang, man?
Yeah.
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 You want to like unpack that and kind of explain, like like how you detached yourself from it, you know?
Well, honestly, no, like
that's so good, because there's people out there right now that need healing. From your testimony.
Yeah. So very, very seriously, I took about 2.5 years to heal. You know, 2.5 years to put distance between me and that person, 2.5 years to say, okay, let me get this person out of my head. Let me, you know, get them out of my heart. And like we just said, my mind, my will, my emotions, let me get all of this in check, you know. And so I went on a journey, you know, of just allowing the Lord to, because again, like I said, I'm a Christian, so allowing the Lord to heal me in areas that I was lacking, which caused me to get caught up with that person in the first place, you know.
Wow, so good.
So yeah, and I think, and we won't even go into yours because
Oh, I had many of them. I had many of them.
This show is timed, so we don't have time
See
for
how she tried to shift it over to
for
me.
your
but I
days
had
in the
many
streets.
of them. I had many of them,
Yeah.
and I will confess. And
Yeah.
you know, it was very damaging. You know. You know, especially when you have many. I mean, I commend you, Dawn, for only having one. I mean, just think if a person has like 7 or 8 of them all at the same time. That's kind of like
body count.
Yeah,
high
yeah.
body count. That's
Well,
what
you
I
know,
think that's what
we
the
ain't
kids
gonna call it body
it.
count.
No,
you know
I think
what I'm
that's what
saying?
they call it. I'm
yeah,
not
but
sure.
I don't want to call it that because it seems like
Wow.
it's demeaning to women.
Well,
Like body
I'm sorry.
count? Like,
I'm not
okay,
trying to do that.
I mean,
Definitely not
you know
trying
what
to
I'm
do
saying?
that.
Come on, we don't want
I
to
mean, that's
do
what
that.
they call it.
Yeah,
For men
yeah.
and for women.
Yeah, but they who? I don't call it that. I mean,
Oh,
it just
yeah.
I had
There's
to-
always that they.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
wonder
it's
who
like,
are
who
they?
are
right?
those
Yeah,
people?
Yeah, it's somebody, the
Right.
powers that be,
Or
that,
something.
that come up with this stuff. But do you think it's taboo for Christians to talk about sex nowadays? Like, we got a podcast right now. We're Christians. We actually even
Yeah.
pastor a church. But I think that, man, you can't even say sex. Sex. Like, if you say it, like, you know, in the church,
Yeah.
somebody stop, drop their Bible,
Yeah.
drop their jaw, start looking at you. I mean, and for me, God designed sex. He's the one
Yeah.
that orchestrated it.
Yeah.
He put the perimeters and he set it up. So
Yeah.
why can't we talk about it?
Right.
The Bible said, and they knew one another.
Why do you change your voice?
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, you know, it's
Like, that
dramatic.
takes me
you
out
know,
every time. I just
well,
can't.
I mean,
Anyway.
you should get used to it. By
Right,
now,
I
'cause
should be.
but I'm just saying they
I
knew
just
one
can't.
another, meaning
I don't know.
they had sex.
Yeah.
And so begot, so begot, so begot. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you know that begot, you know, it's a gap between that. Somewhere they had sex.
Yeah.
And so why is it that you think the church or Christians don't want to talk about sex? And there's a second part of that question. They don't want to talk about sex, but then when it's all kind of mess going on in sex, because they never like actually talked about it, they get all frustrated and point fingers at, ooh, you know,
Yeah.
so-and-so pregnant, you know they're not married. I mean, you know, and it's like, hold on, y'all don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So why is it that people don't want to talk about sex in the church?
Well, I think there's just a long, huge history there, you know.
Okay.
But which is ironic because it's not like the world came up with, meaning the secular world came up with the idea of sex. It's
Right.
God created, like you just said. So I think there's a long history of that, just to oppress people and to have that huge gap between the good and the bad in the church, you know, like, oh, you're bad, you're going to hell, that kind of, to condemn people and stuff.
Wow,
So I
that-
think there's just a huge history there of people, of sinful man taking something beautiful that God ordained and making it twisted and perverted. So I think that that's just man's, not man like males, but just mankind's, although it was kind of controlled by men, but that's a whole different topic.
See?
But I will say, I think it's just in history, you know, and it just kind of got passed down as something that's weird and
Traditional,
not
right.
tradition and not being beautiful. So I think that's what has happened just down through the years. And I also think that let me adjust this a little bit. I also think that because of that, it makes people uncomfortable to have that conversation. And because it makes people uncomfortable to have that conversation, it's just kind of one of those things that just, you know, like, you know, it just gets swept under the rug, or they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to awaken sexual desire in
Well, I
young
want to
people.
know how they think they
And-
got there. How did we all get here?
Yeah.
And how is that bump on that woman's stomach? How did it get there?
Like, oh, well, I
No,
mean,
I'm
you know,
just
that's
saying,
what
I mean, because we need to talk about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like when that pop up, everybody act like it's a surprise.
Yeah.
But come on, you know good and well people have sex and people want to have sex. I mean, why wouldn't you want to talk about
that
it?
is a good question to explore. And I think that if we were, if we did take the taboo off of it, more young people would be more apt to talk about it, to ask questions. And I think that older people in the church, like the Bible says, you know, the older ladies teach the younger ones, you know. And I think that people would be more inclined to do that if we lift the stigma of it.
Yeah. And when I say
know.
this, everyone, please understand, I'm not saying every single Christian in every church
Yeah.
in America. There are some amazing parents out there
Yeah.
that are talking to their children behind closed doors and explaining to them what sex is, why, you know, they should wait before, wait for marriage.
Yeah.
There's people that are telling them, you know, about safe sex. There are people, and kudos to you, I salute you. I'm not saying there's no one out there, but it just seems like the big C, talking about the hundreds of millions of Christians that are out there, it seemed like there's more taboo on sex or talking about sex than it is, you know, the freedom to communicate and
Yeah.
talk about it. Sex. Well, how do you view sex then?
Like I just said, I feel like it's definitely God ordained and God created. I feel like it's a subject that we should talk about freely, particularly with young people and people who may have had some type of a trauma and abuse and all of those kind of things, because life has a way of perverting something that God created as beautiful. And so I think that the more the church is willing to shed God's perspective and truth onto things, it helps to lift the veil off of young people's eyes and people who may be struggling, even in marriage,
Yeah.
with sexual dysfunction, because they perhaps came to the relationship with a whole bunch of layers of things that they never addressed.
Yeah, like some
You know?
people may have sexual abuse, so they look at sex no matter what with like a stigma.
Yeah.
And it's traumatic, you know, and they never took that deep dive. And that's why the church and Christians should be leading the way to help people get out of that trauma,
Yes.
you know, speak about that, find freedom there and healing. And then when they do approach marriage, they approach it, you know, with a healthy view of what sex is, because sex, according to the Bible, is for two reasons: for reproduction and for pleasure.
Yeah.
It's all throughout the Bible. In Proverbs, it talks about how, you know, you should let her breast satisfy you at all times. It's not talking, breasts don't reproduce, so it's not talking about reproduction. It's talking about you enjoying your wife's breast. That's just for pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but that's for pleasure. Then it talks about being fruitful and multiplying. That's
Yeah.
talking about reproducing and multiplying the whole earth, meaning we need to have children. Now, I think we get the procreation side. We get
Yeah.
the multiplication side, but so many times we miss the pleasure side. Like, you gotta feel condemned because you want to enjoy sex.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody been finna be sitting down and feeling bad because I want to enjoy sex tonight. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Ain't nobody finna, I'm not finna be running around looking crazy. You know what I'm saying? Putting my head down and put my tail, you know, like a dog putting a tail between their legs. No. The
Okay.
Bible says it's okay to enjoy sex.
Yeah.
And so I think that my view is you enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? And two, you know what I'm saying? You know, if you can have children, if you're at that age, because watch this. There's more time, and this is gonna sound horrible, but get ready.
You're
Okay?
very passionate about this topic, so come on. Let's hear it.
Okay, it's more time when you can't have children, like say 40, 50 and all that, you know, for like women. So I guess you're supposed to just be enjoying this thing for all that time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because it's not about producing no more. I mean, it's not about producing no more. It's not about reproducing it. And, you know, so the Bible says there's two reasons. And I'm laughing because they're like, she's just overexcited about me being excited about talking about this.
No, I mean, and I think it's good, because at the end of the day, like I said, there's so much stigma and taboo about it, and people act like, oh, don't mention that. You don't want to awaken that in young people. And you don't want all your single people in the church going buck wild and all that. But I don't. I think that when you talk about things, I think that there's shame in secrets, and that there's a whole bunch of ugly stuff festers in the darkness, you know. I think when you bring stuff out to the light and put it on the table and have a healthy discussion about it, that it really does bring life to people. But let me ask you this before we move on. What about people who, like, that's their basic level of connection? Like, is sex. Like, how do you, like, can you build a relationship, a healthy relationship out of that?
That is such a good question. I want to touch this prior to me answering that.
Okay.
You said secrecy, and I heard something from a wise man the other day. He said secrecy and privacy is two different things.
Okay.
And so you can talk about sex in the privacy of your home, but when you make it a secret, then that becomes evil.
Okay. Yeah.
No matter how much you make it a secret, whether it's, you want to, not shed any light on it, that just became evil now that you don't want to discuss sex. You don't want to. Now, in the privacy of your home, discussing that with your children, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Now, the question that you had was pretty profound, but I forgot it.
So I was asking about, like, what about two people who say it's two young people, they meet in church and fall into sexual sin, and obviously sex is not something you do once and be like, I don't, no, let's just not. You're gonna want to do that again. Can they build off of that? Like, can you, not necessarily off of that, but can you catapult into something healthy when it starts sexually?
Sure. I mean, because my first 29 years, 32 years of life, it was all built on, like, having sex the wrong way. And so I think that people can bounce back. Say you got a relationship, you love this person, or you have emotions towards this individual, you like them a lot, and you start off and you start having sex. I think that you got a lot of ground to cover to recover respect for one another, because unconsciously you've lost respect for one another. You may not know it, but you're going to find out later that, you don't have respect, because, you violated certain things, especially say you're a Christian, right?
Yeah.
When you're a Christian and you know that the right thing, and then you end up doing that, like, somewhere in there you have to recover, and you got to just be willing to fight for that. You got to fight for that relationship, especially if you love that person. You go through it. I remember me and Helena, we didn't have sex before marriage, but it was very close to it. And me and my wife, we were dating at the time, and I told her early on, I don't believe in kissing or anything. I don't want to, I don't want to do any of that, because I think it'll awaken something inside of me that, because I have a background of being addicted. I just have addictive behavior, and so we kissed, and I pursued it because she planted a seed. Right? She said that she felt like it was okay, and I was like, oh, you do? And so
let me tell that story.
No.
Let me tell that story.
This is my story.
Let me tell it. So what happened was, I did say that, and then somehow, which this was rare, because we come from like when we were dating, you needed to have a chaperone and all that. That's how we were raised up in the things of God.
Some type of accountability.
Some type of accountability. So somehow
she took me away alone.
Some way, somehow we ended up alone, and so we were
by ourselves.
We were driving in our vehicle, and he leans over and kisses me on the cheek. And so I'm like, okay, he testing me. He trying to see, can he really get some sugar? She had already said
she wanted to have some sugar.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure about this at that point. No, I'm just kidding. I did want to.
Yeah, she had said that. And so anyway, we start kissing, and it really began to start drawing, stirring up more things inside of me. And once we got married, because I was preaching and teaching and all that, I was like internship in leading, and I was preaching, teaching, discipling, and training people up in the things of God, and somehow, we started kissing one another, and once we got married, I felt like that, I had to recover from that. No one said I don't respect you or I don't like you, but I don't believe that you're the head of the household. She never said that, but there were some things that I know I need to recover from. There was responses that I was getting because I know that I violated something that she knew. You're a man of God. You preaching, and look at you trying to, sneak off and try to get some sugar from me, and that's what we called it too. I'm sorry, I know we old, but we was like, let me get some sugar. Right, let me just get a little sugar. Come here, girl.
Oh my God!
And so we would have sugar. I'm talking. We was having sugar in the church house.
Oh
we was
my
having
God.
sugar.
Babe, okay, now.
Okay.
No, it's true though. It really was.
That's too much. Too much. Too fast.
Well, we was getting
TMI.
It's kind of like y'all better not be doing that. I'm telling my spiritual kids
no,
right
but
now.
so what happened was, I had to recover from that because I really violated some convictions that I knew I had.
Violated your own personal conviction. Yeah.
And because of that, we end up, because I don't think kissing is just, sinful. It was just a conviction of mine because I knew that I typically wouldn't drink one beer.
Yeah.
I would drink like a 12-pack. I typically wouldn't smoke one blunt.
Yeah.
I smoke like 4 or 5 of them. I typically wouldn't just have a kiss. I'm going to want to have sex. And so that's what I was speaking about. And that's why it was my conviction. And I violated it. And I felt horrible. And I paid for it. And so when you ask me, can someone build on that? I don't think that you can build on a lustful relationship, but I do think you can build a relationship after falling short. If someone has sex, never will I say I agree with that, because biblically it's it's
sex
unbiblical if you're not married.
Yeah.
If you're not married, obviously, that's unbiblical. But I am a firm believer that God is a loving God, compassionate God. And I am a firm believer that God, your sin will not cancel out God's love for you. Right. I don't think your sin will cancel out God's plan for you. I don't think your sin will cancel out God's favor and forgiveness for you. I just truly don't believe that. And so I think that, somebody can bounce back and build a healthy relationship. And it's probably many millions of relationships right now that are amazing and building wonderful families and households after the fact of starting in sin. And I hate to even say in sin, but, sex before marriage.
Yeah. So why do you think that God even specified that? Because there's some things in the Bible, there's some things in your Christian walk that it won't be specifically said, in the Bible. But God specifically gave mandate for sex. He specifically said, listen, keep that gift in the confines of this box called marriage. Why do you think he did that?
Well, first of all, it's your body, and your body is the temple of God. That's where you carry, you house the Spirit of God living inside of you. And I love the question because it's such a good question. And I know that many people may not, go this deep into it. But the reality is your body is God's temple. So it's violating that. One, it puts you in the emotional, mental state that isn't healthy because of these soul ties. And then secondly, God wants to raise up a healthy family. And if you have, children, which Lord knows, I salute every single parent out there, but it's something about having a father and a mother in a household to bring you a child up healthy. I know I had, a mother, and I love my mother, strong woman, but there was always that missing piece. I had abandonment issues because I didn't have a father there, and that really, really affected me deep into my 30s, And so until I went to therapy and did all types of stuff, actually into my 40s, I just began to start, really diving into that. And so I think that God, he has our best interests at heart. We know that. Yeah. So if God is saying a particular thing, we know without a shadow of a doubt that he has our best interests at heart. So I think that he doesn't want us to violate the temple of God. He wants us not to be led astray emotionally and mentally, because the Bible says, he who wins souls is wise, meaning God is here to save our soul. Our soul is our mind, will, and emotion. And if we get our soul tied up into something that would distract us or draw us away from him, he definitely doesn't want that. And so not only that, he wants to save our soul, but then also the family structure. He wants the family structure to be healthy. He's thinking of us as the unit that's going to actually transform the world and establish his kingdom and establish his will here on earth. And because of that, you having me preach, girl, because of that, you know what I'm saying? He wants to put sex in this perimeter, and he says, this is holy, this is precious, this is the way I want it to be done. And because of that, you'll be blessed because of that. Yeah,
so ultimately for our own good.
For our own good, yeah. See, you could have just, said that. You broke it down. Just one statement. That's why I married this woman. She's just so wise. Because it's for our own good, and that's it, That's it. That's all. Okay, so I want to kind of wrap this up with a question, but it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 questions in one.
Oh, my. I hope
if
I
you-
remember them all.
Well, if you had something to say to singles about sex, what would it be? And then I want to talk about people that are dating. What would it be? What about people that are engaged? What would it be? People who are newlyweds, what would it be? And people who are like veterans in their marriage, what would it be? So if you had something to say to singles, people who are single right now, they're not married, what would it be if you're talking about sex, pertaining to sex?
I'd have to encourage them to ask the Lord to help them to stay sexually pure, to refrain from sex, because it's such a powerful gift. It's such a powerful gift that does pull you in a direction that could derail your life. Particularly if you're on a journey with Christ. Nothing upsets that journey like premarital sex. So I would encourage them to take advantage of your singlehood. Take advantage of your singlehood and gain a richer relationship with Christ and deal with your issues and trauma and heal. And so that way, when you come into a relationship with someone, you're coming to a relationship whole and healthy. And sex is a part of that. Sexual health and your view towards sex and all of that is a very big factor in when you do finally meet someone, if marriage is your desire. When you have a healthy view of sex, it does really help in marriage.
That's so good.
So that's for single people.
So good. What about those who are dating? Kind of like, almost sounds like it coincides.
It is on the same lines, and I will say this from personal experience. The less touching, feeling, patting, kissing that you do, the more likely you're able to make it to the altar and say I do and then enjoy sex.
It's so true. I mean, boy, I'm telling you, woo!
Because once you open up that can, it's very hard or almost impossible to put a lid on that.
And I don't want to sound legalistic, but it's something about a woman touching you. Well, my wife touching me, but I'm just saying when you're a male, hold up now.
Right.
My wife touched me. I'm
Come
talking
on,
about
be
for all men
right.
now. Take it right. But when a man receives a touch, and the same thing for a woman, like just a touch.
Yeah.
Just like somebody brushing up against you. Have you ever just brushed and be like, my Lord, like she just brushed up against you? He's like, hey. And it awakens something. No, seriously.
Yeah.
And so I agree with that. And when dating, you start falling on each other and touching each other on the leg and you know what I'm saying, brushing and hugging and pushing your bodies against one another. And it's like, and I don't want to sound legalistic. Please don't take it that way, because I'm a big component, and man, God is a forgiver, God is a lover. So I'm not saying you're going to go to the bottom of the pit of hell because of this. I'm just saying that it will cause you to begin to steer towards a direction that, possibly
have struggles that you probably don't even really need to have.
Like mentally now you starting to think about something. It just stirs up. So that's for dating. What about people who are engaged? Like, is that kind of like the same thing with the dating?
Yeah, it is. And sometimes that one gets kind of lost because you're already my person.
Right.
We are going to get married, but it's kind of like cheating the system.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's just like, I'm only going to claim one person's kid that's not mine on my income tax. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
Good.
It's like coming as close to the fire, as possible without getting burnt. So it kind of speaks to your scheming mind.
Yeah, well, it's compromise.
Yeah.
And if you compromise on one thing, what'll happen is you'll build a whole life on compromise eventually. And that compromise is just not asking for the sexual desires to be fulfilled. That compromise is talking about every conviction that you have as a believer.
Yeah.
And that's why, compromise is definitely something that needs to be nipped in the bud, and to do it in the confines of engagement, or while you're being engaged, that would be something powerful, and that would give you some form of integrity. And integrity, you can take this anywhere, to any job, to any household, to any marriage, to any parenting, skill, every parenting skill will just really come out of that integrity. You'll be able to lead in a better way, be a father in a better way, a husband, a wife, a spouse. it's so important to have integrity. And so that's one of my key core values, is to have integrity. Who I am right now, who I am by myself, who I am over here, and so integrity, that's good. No compromising. Well, how about newlyweds? They just got married. You just got married. What was the conversation you and I had when we first got married? I want to go ahead. I want you to. No, please, say it. We're here. We're out there now. We already out there.
Oh my God. So Billy and I do ministry as a vocation. Most people refer to it as full-time ministry. And so because we do full-time ministry and our lives are just really full and rich and very like we're always busy. We always got stuff going on. So
see how she's not getting to
I'm
it.
kind of beating around the bush because I'm looking for words, because it was a little like raw and uncut how he put it to me. But he basically said, Helena, what we're not going to do is be consumed with sex in our marriage. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to have sex. We're going to enjoy one another and all that. But it's not going to be like the main thing that we not, in other words, we're not just going to lay up in this bed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We got stuff to do, And you would think that would be, duh, of course we have stuff to do, but it's really easy to give in to just feeding your flesh like that.
Yeah.
And
what happened to me is I was scared.
Okay.
Shoot, I've been without sex for 6 years, 7 years. Then we have sex, and sex is for pleasure, so it's a pleasurable thing. And I'm like, hold up, no, I'm not finna be doing it. I was scared. I'm not finna be doing this every day. I was like, just the kid, just sitting on it. I was laying in the bed like, no, we are not gonna be doing this. Because because
I didn't know all that was going on.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. I had to come. I'm not finna be sitting up in there doing this, because it was scary to me that, because I hadn't been doing that for years, and I didn't want it to control me. I was scared to lose my call, and I was scared to get sidetracked, you know what I'm saying, by, being consumed by sex and being consumed by, my wife. I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that I was going to reach people, I was going to preach the gospel, that I was going to fulfill the reason why God had created me, and I just felt like that possibly could be something that could derail me from that. And so I was like, look here, hey, baby girl, we ain't finna be doing this all day. No. So for newlyweds, what would you say?
Well, for newlyweds, that you're married now, so you have the green light, I guess you could say, to have and enjoy sex as much as you and your partner agree and things like that. Now, what I will say, in
a healthy manner. That's why I wanted to tell her the story. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I will say on top of that is this is where having a healthy view of sex comes in.
So good.
Because a lot of times this is where people are like, well, let's watch porn, or let's do all these weird things, and what ends
invite madness into today's sex life.
Right. And so what ends up happening is there can be an avenue for dysfunction there.
Yeah, the Bible said the marital bed should not be defiled in Hebrew.
Right. So I would say having a healthy view of sex as newlyweds, well, that should have happened before you even got married. But with a healthy view of sex, go for it. Do y'all, and have pleasure in it.
Yeah, if you're saying do y'all, you probably, like what I just said about our story was, y'all, you probably want to sit down and discuss what are the perimeters, what is the design, what is your thought. It's so good. We've had conversations like this.
Yeah.
How many times do you think you want to do this?
Yeah.
No, for real. And I know that sounds weird, but how many times do you want to do this weekly? Do you want to do it more, 3 or 4? I'm serious, and I know that might sound weird. I would be wanting to plan for everything. Now I know, there's a lot of spontaneity to, sex and having sex. It's not like, today Tuesday, girl, you already know what's going on, girl. It's Tuesday night. It's not even close to that.
Horrible.
That would be horrible. That would be horrible. It's not like that. I'm saying it's like, we know our rhythms.
Yeah.
We know our bodies
know
and
your
what we will
partner's
want.
rhythm.
Yeah. You want to, so you want to sit down and, you know, when you say you got the green light, you know, go for it. But don't let that be a sidetrack for whatever God created you to do.
Yeah.
And don't get consumed with sex, because even in the perimeters of marriage, it can still become sinful.
Yeah, it can, and so that's why it's good to have a healthy view of that.
Yes.
And also, I think for newlyweds, you know, talking, like you just said, with your partner is very important, because if, say, for example, because babies do come from sex, you know,
Yeah.
and that happens, say somebody, you know, she gets pregnant early on, well, you know, that kind of changes sex patterns and sex rhythms and all of that, because babies, you know, they change stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're coming to a marriage and you already have kids, there you have to consider all of that too. So work schedules, all of those things. And so that's why conversation, having a healthy view of sex, not having unrealistic expectations because you've invited porn and all these other things into your marriage is very, very important, particularly for newlyweds, because now you got the green light. You made it, and you think that, okay, it's like some free for all weirdness, but there still should be conversation, because a person can start feeling really abused or just used for their partner's sexual pleasure if conversations aren't had and understanding is not gotten.
Wow.
So that's important.
And that's crazy. You could be married and still feel used.
Yeah.
And abused. That's crazy. What about those veterans? They've been, you know, like, oh, we've been married 10, 15 years anyway. Y'all don't worry about that old guy. He'll be fine. I mean, you know, we done that early on. We've been there, done that. What about those people? What would you say to them about sex?
I would say the same, a little bit of the same thing. It's important to, first of all, in all those years, you should know your partner. Don't use sex as a weapon, you know, okay, I'm going to punish you, sir, you know, that kind of thing, or I'm going to punish you, ma'am, you know. It's not, don't use sex as a weapon. I'd say that to newlyweds too, because sex is a very powerful tool. Also, again, that conversation, know your partner's rhythm, know what you know, I mean, because as you get older, believe it or not, your body's going to change. You know, so that's why sex can't be the ultimate foundational piece too, because your body's going to change. Menopause happens. Men go through whatever they go through as they age, and it's just not going to be the same experience as if it was when you were, say, in your 20s or younger. You know, so because your body is changing and because you as an individual are changing, it's important to check in with your partner.
Yeah.
Check in with your partner and have those conversations. And I say continue to keep that spice there, though,
right?
Because it is a beautiful thing and it does matter. No matter it seems like for men, no matter what age they are, it always matters.
Absolutely.
I don't know that that's always true for women. I know that for me and women that I know around my age and older, it's there, the desire is there, but it seems like for women it may not be as strong as you age. I don't know that that's true across the board for all women, but it seems like for men, that's a little bit different. That's a lot different.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like you're saying, okay, know your partner's body, have check-ins, and then also, man, don't take it just because we've been married 15, 20 years to think that this doesn't matter, because it's still important to keep a little spice in it.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there right now, and if you're single, you know, make sure that you can pursue a purity, you know, and sexually. If you're dating, you know, you want to put some healthy boundaries up there. And if you're a newlywed, I mean, if you're engaged, same thing as if you're dating, you know, you just got to, you know, press. You're almost at that finish line. And then once you become a newlywed, you know, come to find out what your partner desires, so you guys can all be on the same page. And me and Elena, we've had a journey through this for quite some time, you know, going on 13 years now. And, you know, I can't say that sex isn't important in marriage, because it is.
Yeah.
It's not the number one thing, but it is on the list. And so it's so important, you know, because in marriage moments, you know, with me and Elena, we wanted to share something about sex. It just, we felt like, how could we have this conversation without talking about sex? So I know it says marriage moments, but there's going to be a moment when you are married. And if you're single right now, you want to make sure that all these moments matter. And so with us, I'm grateful that you guys joined us. I'm telling you, it means the world to us, right?
Absolutely.
If you would share this, subscribe, make sure you put your alerts where you can actually be notified that a new episode is coming out. And so we love you guys dearly. These come out, the first Friday of the month. And so make sure that you get it to all your friends and your family. And thank you for joining us once again for Marriage Moments. Because remember, every moment matters. All right.